Well, welcome back, everybody. Now, in case you've missed it, this is really the big story of the day. Reform UK are currently in the middle of the mother of all fallouts. Rupert Lowe has had the whip suspended after allegations of bullying, and Reform have even reported him to the police over allegations of physical violence against their chairman, Zia Youssef. This brings the recent momentum behind Reform to a bit of a halt, to say the least. The party had expected to make serious gains at the local elections in May. We'll have to wait and see about how today's developments obviously affect that. Now, here we go. In the last few moments, Rupert Lowe has released this statement. So he says, important. The independent lawyer instructed by Reform has advised me to say the following. The party was precipitous to state that these allegations had been made without also saying that the party has commissioned an independent investigation, and the investigation has not yet got underway to look at all the evidence and evaluate the veracity. Now, I don't think there's any shame in this. I did have a quick Google about precipitous, and that says, done suddenly and without careful consideration. Rupert Lowe goes on, this tells you everything that you need to know. All right, does it? Because I don't really understand this. So go on. Barry, translate this for us.
I'll put on my lawyer's glasses, shall I? The interesting thing here is that he says it's the independent lawyer appointed by Reform that has told him to say this.
Yeah.
It's not his lawyer, it's Reform's lawyer. So this looks to me as if Reform are trying to patch things up.
Backtrack.
Because they're backtracking, exactly as you said.
So, go on, explain how they're backtracking.
They're backtracking because they're saying, we went too quickly to accuse you. We went out too quick. Precipitous just means that, sudden, too quick, right? We were too quick in making this public, when what we should have done is we should have said, if there's a prima facie case here, if it looks as if you've done something wrong, we suspend you, we investigate, and then we go public once we've investigated. But it looks as if Reform Party's lawyer, who's now communicating with Rupert Lowe, is saying, look, we've got to get this back together. That would be my reading of the situation.
OK, well, that's... Well, it's amazing because it was, just remember that statement was put out by Reform UK. Lee Anderson and Zia Youssef's names were at the bottom of it. This is a bit of a circus, isn't it?
It's chaos. And again, I'll make the point I made earlier. It's everything that Reform have told themselves that they're not when it comes to other parties. I mean, next, what are we going to do? Find out who's buying their suits? I mean, we just need to...
Well, yeah, or you might be able to buy them a very expensive croissant and have access to their business secretary. We don't know. Right, look, let's just go to the audience on this now. Again, we have got a fair few Reform voters in here, I think, haven't we, Reform supporters? Are you more or less likely to vote Reform now as a result of Rupert Lowe apparently being out? Are you less likely to vote Reform if Rupert's out of the party? Anyone? Yes? Any no? No? Do you think you'll vote for them anyway?
Yes.
Right, that's interesting.
Make any difference.
So to you, it doesn't seem to make much of a difference if Rupert Lowe's gone.
Oh, like I said, it's all about Nigel Farage. Is Nigel Farage the best thing about Reform Party?
Policies as well.
So if Rupert Lowe becomes a leader and Farage steps away from Reform and says, actually, I'm going to go to the Tories, and the Tories welcome him in, you're going to stay and vote for Rupert Lowe and Reform, are you?
I think so, yeah. I would.
Oh, it's just about... OK,
so it's purely about policies. It doesn't matter who's in charge.
There's a gentleman with the microphone on the front row here. What would you like to say? Well, look, you've got a point about Reform, I think, about Rupert Lowe, about this. Just have at it, mate. What's your views? Go on.
Yeah, it's pretty much like Rupert Who sort of thing. I mean, I follow him on Instagram, etc. And yes, he makes some good points. He's a good challenger, but he's not doing the party any good. He's not doing the country any good by doing what he's doing. So bottom line is, I think Reform will plough through. It's going to be a hiccup, but I don't think it's going to be a mortal blow. So.
Yeah, I agree. Just me.
The problem is they've made his criticism of Farage, which I think was probably misjudged, a much bigger story than it needed to be. But if they're stitching him up as a result of this, it's much bigger now.
But look at the way they've handled it, though. They came out, suspended him, they went gung-ho on it, and now they're retracting. I just don't think that looks very good at all. And I want to put my faith in something other than the Labour Party and the Conservative Party who have failed us. I don't want to find ourselves back in the same place. So I think Reform need to be very, very careful with how they manoeuvre this, because otherwise people will go back to the two main parties.
Right, you don't need to stand up this time, sir, so it doesn't matter whether or not your flies are done up. Go on, what you got?
Sorry, it's me again, but it looks like amateur hour.
It does.
And the thing is, it kind of plays... Why give the other parties ammunition, you know? They've already been having a go at Farage because they think he's pro-Putin and all this nonsense. Now they've got this. Why can't people just behave themselves and just get on with it? You know, they were doing so well, and it feels like there's support, and there's a lot of support out there, clearly, as we can see from the polls, and it feels like they're letting people down. You know,
you feel that... I mean, I don't know if you voted for them, but OK...
I didn't vote for them last time, but I was seriously considering voting next time.
Mark.
And it feels like, well, you know, get your act together.
Mark, you say that all this nonsense about Farage supporting Putin. You'll recall that in the GQ magazine, Farage said that his most respected politician was Vladimir Putin.
He qualified that, Barry, quite heavily. He qualified that by saying he quite admired the way that the guy had managed to stay in power, but then he also said... How can you praise his human rights record?
Hang on. Yeah. Well, that is because the way that Putin had stayed in power at that point in time when he did that article was 5 people had just been executed in Russia by Putin for opposing him. Yeah. So the idea that it's nonsense that Farage admires
I'm talking about
Putin.
the context in where we are. You keep talking about context, rightly. Yeah. I'm talking about in the context of where we are now vis-a-vis Putin. I'm not talking about 5 years ago, whenever it was. He may have said some indiscreet things then, but I don't get the sense that, you know, the guy's rabidly pro-Putin in the context of what's going on now in Ukraine.
Guys, we're going to have to take the break. We're going to have to take the break, but thank you very much. For what it's worth, I've contacted Zia Yusuf tonight. Crickets on that front, I'm afraid. Rupert Lowe, I did contact. I'll read you a message that I've had from him now, which was a WhatsApp just moments ago, just quickly. It's quite funny. He says it's malicious child's play, but very damaging. He says he's just got home and he's opened a bottle of wine. And he says the truth will out. Have fun. So there we go. Again, right, where do people... Did anyone... Who in this room voted Reform? Did anyone... We got many Reform voters in, quite a few, I imagine. OK. Are you all feeling a bit let down tonight, do you think? Yeah, all feeling a bit let down. I think we should just go straight to an audience question on this. You, sir, in that lovely, what would you describe it as, salmon peach top? I think it's fantastic. Salmon. Barry Gardner, salmon expert over here. Go on, hold the microphone. What's your point on this, mate?
So with Howard Cox, Ben Habib, now Rupert Lowe, who have been ostracised, is this more about Nigel Farage being frightened of losing control of the Reform Party?
All right. JJ, can I start with you on the end here? Because I think you were, you don't mind me saying, you were quivering on the edge of being a Reform supporter, were you?
I won't go that far, mate.
No, but what do you make of this gentleman's question here?
It depends what you want as a Reform voter. If you want to have a serious chance of getting into Parliament, you're not going to support Rupert Lowe, unfortunately, because people who are not anywhere near supporting Reform do not like what Rupert Lowe says. Farage, you will see and admit, over the last year and a half, has changed his stance on several things. He's become softer. The things that he says, he still means and believes in, I think, but he's not going as far as he used to, because he needs to win people like me, the Labour voter, who's disenfranchised by Labour. He needs to win the Tories. So Farage doing the right thing, Rupert Lowe, unfortunately, and Ben Habib, a friend of mine, I like him, but the things that they were saying are not going to get them elected into government.
OK, Nana, your views?
Well, I think that it kind of almost verifies Ben Habib's point about the party, that it's not a proper structure that people can actually assign themselves to, and that is a problem. Interestingly, I was looking at online on X, and this is a tweet from Lance Foreman. Okay. And he says, I'm not a member of Reform, but here's what I would do if I was Farage. Sack Zia Yusuf for embarrassing the party, apologise to Rupert Lowe and congratulate him for being a great MP, then make Ben Habib chair with full responsibility to democratise the party and develop policy. And although I might not agree with it word for word as such, I think he makes a good point. OK, all right. Now, I'm just going to say, if anybody else would like to make a point on Reform, could you put your hand up? We'll try and get the microphone to you on this. But, Christy, I'm going to throw it over to you, because Rupert Lowe has become, you know, quite famous, really, for asking a lot of solid questions in Parliament, making a lot of points about immigration, especially. I mean, this is a massive blow for Reform. Airing your dirty laundry in public is a bit weird, I think.
Well, I think what could have been an open goal is now something of an own goal. I thought that when Rupert made those comments, which go against the grain of what you're supposed to do when you're in a political party, I thought that Reform had the potential to spin this and say, well, actually, look, I don't agree with what Rupert's saying, but we're different from other parties. We're allowed to sort of have a little bit of criticism here and there, and it's fine. If this is a stitch-up to somehow punish him, well, as Nana said, all it's doing is proving the point he was making, in as much as you criticise the hallowed leader and you get in some sort of trouble. But also, what it is showing and why it's a potential own goal is that they're exactly the same as all the other parties in their infighting and ego. And so I think it's potentially quite misjudged.
Barry. I tell you what a day to be a Labour MP. Oh, he's not saying... What are you doing? You're going to tell me this is a bad day for democracy because there's no opposition. Now, go on, how do you feel?
Go on, do it.
Political parties have disagreements because they've got people who've got strong wills, who have very strong opinions, and sometimes they try and stitch each other up. Listen, I know. I've been stitched up. I don't know another politician who has ever had 5 pages of the Mail on Sunday walking along the beach hand in hand with my own wife, right? That was how
change in politics.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, if it'd been somebody else's wife, I could have understood it. But it was with my own wife, right? And that was a scandal. I know what it is to stitch people up. It's happened to me over the China thing. I've taken people, I've sued people like Rupert's threatened to do. Talk TV came out the worst from that. But what I say is, look, you're innocent in this country until you're proven guilty. So all those charges that they've levelled against him, and, you know, the bullying and all of that, you know, of course they should be investigated. Okay. Of course they should be investigated. That's absolutely right. But you're innocent until you're proven guilty.
All right.
And I think there'll be a lot of people who are making hay. There'll be a lot of people who are thinking, ha, 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 you know, another politician's got it in the neck. The truth is, it can be quite tough being a politician and getting it in the neck a lot of the time. Okay. And so I'm not going to kick a man when he's down. I think, you know, let's see what happens. Let's see how they...
But Barry, he did criticise the leader of his party.
I've criticised the leader of my party.
And you're not in the cabinet. When you supported someone else, Rebecca Long-Bailey, you supported for the leadership against Starmer, and you're in the shadow cabinet under Corbyn, you're in the cabinet in some role under Blair. Because you didn't support Starmer, you didn't get a plum role, is what I would say. So I think it's fine for Farage, in this sense, to say, you're in my party, I'm in charge, and let's be frank. Wait, let me finish.
There's only 4 of them left.
Yeah,
you need to be cleverer than that.
Well, no, there's only 4 of them left. Yeah. But the fact is, Reform exists because of Nigel Farage. If you think that people in this country are won over by Rupert Lowe, it's not. It's down to Nigel Farage that Reform will have any MPs full stop.
But the big sell of Reform is that they're different. They're not like all the other parties. They are open for debate. They are open for criticism. That's their big sell to the public. And all this is demonstrating is that perhaps they're not that different. And that's a shame for them. And it's a shame for people who want to vote for them.
OK. Go on. We'll see what I'm going to do. We've had a late entry here. So this chap has got the microphone on the front row here. If we could give it to the chap in blue. Thank you very much. Now, you've been getting very vocal, mate. Thank you. You get very vocal there about when people were saying this is all down to... As in, Nigel Farage is the big sell on Reform. So what's your view on that?
Well, I think at the end of the day, Reform wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Farage.
Yeah.
And Rupert Lowe, I mean, I can't help but feel that this all links back to that statement that Musk made in terms of he will be the anointed one, if you will. Now, Rupert should basically back his party. And like you said, at the end of the day, he's coming in, he's bad-mouthing us, and I'm a Reform voter now. He sat here the last time at the hustings. I supported the Tories, but at the end of the day, Reform are the only one, in my view. So we need to stand behind each other, because otherwise we are just going to be blown in the wind, and you will have no opposition, and the country will be ruined, in my view.
But they all keep making the same mistake. I don't get it. They should know. If you've ever watched The Apprentice, right? Hunt as a pack, work as a team, you win, nobody goes. Instead, they start the infighting, and then suddenly they start dropping off one at a time. We can't have that with our politicians. We need them to be cleverer and wiser. And if they are going to run this country, then they need to show us that even in a small pack, that they can be united. What will they look like when they've got 30 or 40 or 50 MPs, how thin is their skin that they can't actually just say, OK...
They'll look like Labour and they'll look like the Tories.
They all look the same, but that's a problem for us. That's a problem for us.
I still think that it's down to Nigel Farage. He's the man with the Midas touch. He's the charisma. It's not Rupert Lowe, it's Nigel Farage.
Can I agree with JJ to this extent?
You can.
Hey.
To this extent, right? It is the prerogative of the leader of a party to assemble around them and have closest to them in a cabinet the people that they trust. It doesn't matter whether you have a difference or disagree. It's the people that they trust, because that's the people they feel they can rely on to take the country in the direction that they want to go.
Okay.
And if you're in the cabinet, then you have to be loyal to the leader, right? Because that's exactly the sort of discipline that we're talking about.
Yeah.
If you're not in the cabinet, then you should be free to speak your mind, but to do it in a collegiate way.
All right.
And always respectfully.